Hey folks, we're back. Thanks for watching that break. We're just trying to get a hold of Reynor right now. The first map is going to be on Apotheosis, and Lillekanin's here. We're just waiting on Reynor to show up. Got the Unsteady joining us in chat. Dude, what's up? We're an hour into the broadcast. It's good to see your face. Hopefully we'll be doing some Overwatch stuff as soon as we get back from Korea, man. For those who don't know, Unsteady, we did host him the other day. He was doing some fun stuff with Overwatch, and of course doing lots of silly voices and commentary. It's a good guy to watch if you want to see some fun Overwatch stuff. But yes, right now we're waiting on Reynor. I'm trying to set up this giveaway. I guess you guys have probably seen it a million times before, the Gleam.io site. I'm just trying to figure out if there's a way to do multiples. I know there's a way to do multiple giveaways through it, but I might just do the one for now and then just do another separate one afterwards, just to make it easier.
All right.
Again, I don't want to get the wrong discussion started with this, so I'm going to just preface it with, guys, again, we really appreciate you tuning in, and I don't, for the Americans in the audience, I don't want to divide you by saying anything good or bad about the candidates who won or lost or whatever during the election, like whether you're a Trump fan or a Hillary fan. This is just an objective statement that's about to be made, but I do want to just say this because if you are going to start talking politics in chat based off what I have to say, please don't. And if you find yourself compelled to, and you must, please take it to whispers with other people or bring it to another chat channel. We're here for StarCraft. This is just a comment on downtime. Because I checked Reddit, and it's just hitting me. Like, Trump won, and that's whatever for how you feel about it, but there's like pictures of him, I guess, in the White House now with Barack Obama. And that for me, as like a non-American, is just when it finally sets in, you're like, oh man, that dude is going to be president. Like, oh man. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Looks like Lillekanin's gone to the bathroom too while we're waiting. But yeah, the whole, I thought it was kind of crazy too, just how you saw all these things. I guess everybody expected Hillary to win. Sure. There's all those pictures on Reddit of like the president-elect and all these things, like the magazine covers with her face. South Park last night had to completely, I guess, rewrite its episode because they had just made one assuming it would be that direction. Like, it's crazy. And I really am mostly curious. The next 4 years are going to be whatever up to question, right? But I'm really curious, like 20 years from now or 30 years from now, looking back on it, like, is this still going to be as crazy then? Or is this just because we're living in the moment?
It's a good question. I mean, I think it'll be as crazy, but I'm also, like, biased, so there's that. But there's a lot of things, like, besides just, like, however you think about the person that was chosen to be president, the way that it is led up is awfully shocking. Like, the reason everyone thought that she was going to win was that all the polls, or like a majority of them, said that she was going to win very convincingly, and people are now like, because usually not off by that much of like that huge of a margin, right? So people are like, okay, what happened, like, how can we like fix this and whatever. So that'll at least be something historic.
Well, so another thing too, by the way, is I think this election and what recently happened in Brexit as well really highlights how bad some of the voting systems are out there. I referenced him in a previous cast, but I'm again going to name drop CGP Gray. If you guys have never heard of this YouTuber, he makes phenomenal videos, very high quality, awesome to listen to, great voice and all this, but he's got things where he talks about different forms of how you can do voting. Whether it's something simple like trying to decide what to eat with your friends, or whether it's the presidential elections, you know, he's actually got some really informative videos, and I've been rewatching them a lot after this most recent week of election stuff, and just very interesting to look at the different types of, I guess, ways to vote for things, because they're things I would never have thought of on my own. Didn't even know some of these had names, like first past the post and all that.
Oh, and hanging chads.
Yeah.
Names.
I kind of knew what gerrymandering was, but I didn't know for certain until this guy explained it to me, basically.
So there's two things I could think of when this presidential election was going on, and one was a Futurama episode where they all forgot to vote, and Nixon won by like 3. Oh, there we go. By like 3 votes, right? And they're like, oh crap, I knew something to do something today. But the other one was like, there's a show or whatever where it's like, of course I'm against women's suffrage. I don't want them to suffer.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Corsair Cup. You're tuned in for the round of 8. In the top left side of the map, we got the green Terran player, Lillekanin.
In the bottom right, as the blue Zerg player, he is Reynor for Team Extreme Supremacy. Or True Esports, as they're now called.
I don't want women to suffer either.
Yeah, so you're against it, right?
Yeah.
Good deal.
Now, the other thing that's been surprising about this was, there's been quite a few famous folks who have been fighting about this, and some that we know from the StarCraft scene, and some that you've probably never even heard of, but the intensity to which some Twitter fights got last night and the night before, I feel like I have my own personal reality show I can watch just through Twitter. It's kind of crazy.
It is kind of crazy. I mean, I have some very strong opinions and very strong reactions, but I didn't want to break any friendships, so I actually ended up muting at least like 2-3 people.
Yeah, I don't want to impose opinions on anybody, but it really just as a entertainment source. If you guys don't know who Lacey Green is, if you go check her Twitter, you'll have some fun times.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, proxying, not so surprising out of Lillekanin. He's going to be doing a little bit of shenanigans, but it's not with Reapers, interestingly enough. This is going to be a bunker coming down. This is a little bit more old school.
Yeah, Lillekanin does this though, and I'm still always like wondering if it's worth it, because 2 racks is not what you do anymore if you want a marine rush. Okay, like that.
It's
that
like
saying that it existed
racks.
since Brood War, right? Exactly. It's either 4 racks or 5 racks. So, and we know it doesn't really work that much. Whereas the 2 racks could actually work for specific individuals in a very clutch moment. The 4 racks never had that in Legacy of the Void. So I always wonder, like, because Lillekanin has done this before. He's gone for 2 racks that weren't Reapers, and I'm always just like, is this worth it? Does it work? Oh, does it? Even if he kills the hatchery, and like that's another big thing. Usually you're not supposed to be able to kill the hatchery because you pull the drones, there's not enough marines, blah blah blah. But even if you kill the hatchery, the game's not over because Lillekanin is 1-basing.
Well, this goes on. See if you can deal with it. I mean, the spotting call is a very interesting addition. This kind of reminds me a little bit of the way Snoot used to do it back in HOTS, but it might, given the dynamic of how much everything changes, can't say it'll work the same way. The bunker's just a nice fallback point. Scouts the top of the ramp with the SCVs. I think he knows that the hatchery's probably all he's going to get out of this, at least until he's got significantly more units. But Lillekanin on the other side of this could back at home, start just trying to expand. He could turn on a starport, even just super duper 1-base it.
Yeah.
I also just really want to emphasize part of the reason we brought up the politics stuff just a moment ago, for me at least, was that was a lead up for me to just kind of name drop Bray for a bit. I think that I've really enjoyed some of this, the actual educational stuff I've learned through this election, through the results of the election. It's stuff I just never knew before. I think it would be really good for people to know about going forward.
Yeah, I have some thoughts about that, but we do have the 2 racks finally getting cleaned up, it looks like. There's actually not that many lings. There we go, there's some more lings.
He's like very cost effectively dying though. That's what
Lillekanin, that actually worked. So the thing is that when you have those first 4 or 5 marines, a drone pool takes care of them. You get a couple of queens, you transfer on a spine crawler, and in an emergency situation, you probably still save the hatchery. But Reynor made a choice to let the hatchery go without, really taking any chances at it not letting it go, basically. Like, actually just let it die. Get 2 other hatcheries, apparently. He had enough money to do that. And get speedlings, because another response we have seen is roaches. But speedlings will certainly take control over the map, and it's probably what he wanted to play in Apotheosis anyways, not Roach Ravager. And now he knows that Lillekanin is on 1 base, and if he knows Lillekanin, that shouldn't be a surprise.
No, absolutely not. I love the idea to do the double expand. I really like the fact that he's got a gold-based expand too as well. Making up for that hatchery loss shouldn't be too impossible. I mean, you look at the income graph right now, it's so heavily favoring Lillekanin, but keep in mind that's through mules and things that will mine out his main very quickly. So Lillekanin is on a bit of an awkward timer because he's not expanding. The Terrapin can lift up and move the command center over, but on the other, you don't really want to have to do that.
No. As amazing as it sounds, and as long as it lets a Terran survive when they really shouldn't be, it's actually not that great. They'll still be only on 1 base after you transfer over. So we've seen Lillekanin do this before too, by the way, which is just bulk up Marines to the left. The last time we saw it, the Zerg barely scouted it and was able to respond. I think that's the way it went down. But basically, you should know that Lillekanin is always doing something tricky, and he should have a Ling running around the map for the proxy starport that could have been what he was doing, or the building more Marines from the barracks that he is doing right now. And he'll actually have a very decent Marine tank push follow-up if Reynor doesn't realize what's going on. If he only has Lings, no Banelings, no Roaches, no Ravagers, I think Lillekanin's push just wins. it's just so unlikely that we see a Zerg player not know that Lillekanin is like this, basically. He's like that, he's that guy, and doesn't have something to respond.
Well, queens are desperately trying to free the rocks. I'm just imagining the Carbot queens right now, like, my babies are on the other side, I need to save them!
Yeah, well. Lings are having a very tough time against specifically 2 tanks being micro.
Right, this reminds me a little bit of not just Archon mode, but back when tank drops were first introduced, right? Like Zerg players were just like, how do I get on top of this? How do I deal with it? And that's not for lack of trying. Reynor should have had queens chipping away at the medevacs, but 3 tanks at this point should almost guarantee the hatchery dies. I love that he's trying to drop the tanks forward to pick off the units trying to kill the rocks. This is so disgusting and cute. But I didn't think the game would come down to 3 tanks. The other problem with this, Lillekanin is putting a lot of focus here on microing, so back at home, not exactly an expansion going down, not a lot of macro, not a lot of production. I guess still got Marines producing over here. I didn't realize just how many had bulked up on the side.
Yeah. I wonder how worth it would have been to build reactors over there. It's still not scouted. But this one's like, the fact that only tanks got a 3rd base and like a handful of lings is really good. But then again, you follow up with Stims Marines.
Well, he's still dealing damage to it. I mean, these queens, okay, yeah, they'll transfuse it, but that's energy they won't have for the follow-up attack. The creep cameras they won't put down, that's the injects that they're missing, you know? So for this is such an interesting position. The rocks are still down, and they haven't been taken off the map, so it's a little bit difficult for Reynor to really do anything about this. Lillekanin now coming from the left side with a big swoop of Marines. He's still got some units, I guess, over here that were picked up. No, they weren't picked up. Oops, kind of forgot about that. That important step that requires you to bring the Marines with you.
It's usually pretty important. But these Marines, I guess, are going to be enough.
By the way,
And,
well said in chat, by the way.
Yeah. The lair is not going to, it's not going to get up. I think that this is just game
it's
over.
And the Marines.
This is, again, this is something we don't see very often from Lillekanin, because usually the Zergs and the Protosses and the Terrans, like, this is against all races, right? They know him enough to continually scout. They don't just say, oh, I dealt with one thing, he's not going to do another. Reynor apparently either forgot or didn't know. I'm going to say he forgot, but you should always check out for that follow-up. And should never anticipate just being able to macro against Lillekanin. Reynor very quickly chooses King Sejong.
That was, by the way, usually the Zerg map, so that's going to be a bit tough for Reynor to have lost out on Apotheosis the way that he just did. Reynor, by the way, I guess we didn't give him the TLDR. For those who don't know, very young StarCraft player, but very good StarCraft player, so I'm not going to treat him any different due to his age, but, again, young kid. Also, just kind of reiterating what Zombie had written in chat, like, talking about the dynamics of the voting system or knowledge like around the elections and stuff, that's not what we have a problem with you guys discussing in chat. In fact, that's a great type of discussion to see. Like, if I see somebody argue like, yeah, the electoral college is broken because of X or Y, that's a good discussion in my books, in my opinion. What we don't want is like you guys name calling, mudslinging, fighting, just like petty little arguments. Like, to say, well, the electoral college system is broken because of X and Y, and then you respond with, yeah, but Hillary would have won if it wasn't, so you suck, and blah, blah. Like, that's what we're trying to avoid in chat. That's what we don't want as part of our channel.
Yeah.
And by the way, there is this degree, too, where even on the topics of politics, like anything we have rules on the chat, right? Like, don't talk about sexism, racism, politics, all that classic stuff. But there's this degree where, like, there are ways to talk about those topics that aren't offensive and aren't going to get people pissed off. The sad reality, though, is, like, 99% of the people out there won't be that person to have that civil discussion. So I just have to, like, a blanket, like, no bueno on all of it. I would love if we were, like, this, highly intelligent society where we could have these, like, casual discussions in Twitch chat. But I think that's unfortunately unlikely to happen anytime soon. But for those of you out there who are like the 1 or 2 that actually, you've got the brain in your head, you've looked at this beyond like what is just petty arguments, thank you. You're awesome. And I hope some of you guys have taken the time to watch the videos I've been referencing and whatever, because I didn't make them. I'm not making any money. I don't even know these people. But it's one of those things where I've just really enjoyed learning through them or their content or just Reddit. As much as I hate it, has had some really good and educational posts. Inform yourselves, guys. Inform yourselves, I guess is what I'm saying at the end of the day.
Yep. As the numbers get bigger, it is harder to control the chat, but it also means we have a lot of non-Americans or people who are generally interested in learning, and appreciate those who are actually educating as opposed to mudslinging. Thank you to Phoenix42 for the 10-month resub. We're just waiting on Reynor to relog, as he did get the lobby bug.
As you say, for someone who's like so quick to like get King Sejong.
Yeah, right.
This
No,
is, by
he's,
the way,
he's been trying.
this is great for Lillekanin. Unfortunately, after this, he does railroad himself into Guru in the semifinals. We'll see if that's where his reign comes to an end, if he's able to beat Reynor here. But it's nice to see Lillekanin working on and getting far with this, because what I like to see through this is that you don't have to play macro to beat players who are good. You don't have to do standard beyond 2 Marine drops. And that's not for my own sake here, but it's just...
Two
it's nice.
Marines?
Thank
two
you.
Marines?
Two medevac,
weeks?
2 medevac Marine drops, excuse me. But my point of this is, not because I'm a cheesy player or anything like that. I love to see that you can still play StarCraft in different ways. And more to the point, even when I don't like people like Avilo and others, you can play StarCraft the way you want to, the way you're comfortable with, and still have it work, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
That's one
I
of the
get what you're
things.
saying.
That's one of the things that really appeals to me about this, by the way, too. Like, when you play League of Legends as a contrast, you have to play a certain way and you have to get certain items. Yes, there's a little bit of diversity, but you can't really play the way you want to. You don't get to take a magic casting hero and suddenly make them all attack damage. At least most of the time. We're not talking quick play, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, in this game for the Corsair Cup, currently down 1 point and fighting against a weird player. In the top left side, we've got True Esports Blue Zerg player, Reynor.
In the bottom right, as the green Terran, he is Lillekanin.
Thank you to oh, I'm gonna mess this up. Is what I'm gonna do. Aridem81. 5 months.
DM81.
5 months of me not saying that correctly. It says because we love you. Kifrin for president. Oh man, why are you gonna make that so confusing on like a different level? Thank you for subscribing. This is, of course, the Corsair Cup, and there's a lot of things to be said. Make sure to check out the links down below and check out all the awesome Corsair Gear, guys. But I really want to drive home the fact that this is one of our last casts before we go to Korea. And I really want to make sure you guys are aware that we are going to Korea. Like, from the 13th to the 20th, maybe you'll see the intermittent stream here and there, but don't expect it. Just wait for that one Alima League Finals. Because it's going to be 1 day of casting for one awesome finals at a live event in Korea. Couldn't be happier. Well, actually, I could. If they were paying for our flights, I'd be happier. But point of it is,
That's true.
It's going to be a really good time, and I don't want our fans to be in the air question marking what's going on. So if you see somebody asking about it, please inform them. If you're on Twitter, make sure to share our tweets about it. And if you're really that extra level interested, we will be vlogging about our trip. So Zombie will be staying for like a full month. I'm only going for like the week.
Yeah, correct. Well, we had Reynor specifically scout for something a little bit wonky to the left. That is definitely why his overload went that direction. Unfortunately, if Lillekanin was going to proxy, it would probably be a little bit more over to the right, but he didn't. He actually went for command center, which Lillekanin does sometimes do. Usually means he's going to go mech in afterwards, though, so still something a little bit weird. And Reynor is going to maybe get the SCV kill? There's only 2 Marines out, and that's like 6 Lings coming here. I don't think he can save the SCV.
I don't know, sometimes build cancel can be real nice, and then sometimes it's just horrible. This was actually probably the last thing he wanted to do. He's got to pull
now
some
that there's
SCVs
4 Marines, it's probably okay. I'd say this is if he stopped pulling the SCVs, 4 Marines will be able to deal with this. But if he didn't pull the SCVs, it would have been better because the command center's actually finishing.
Yeah, plus you'd be mining a
Stop
lot.
pulling the SCVs.
Well, I mean, he did reduce it from like all of them to like 2 and just waiting for a bit of buffer. I can understand not wanting to have this fall apart to something really simple like a couple of links, but I'm gonna swap this over now and go for Hellions by the looks of it. It's not too surprising there.
No, it just is a question of are we gonna see armory and like medevacs coming out from that, or maybe banshees. I feel like he was sort of tech lab on his barracks already if that was the case. But someone brings up a point, and this reminds me of like also foreign language classes, but school teaches you important things. Okay, no disagreeing with that. But sometimes they teach you things at a very like odd time, or it's really mind-boggling how people remember you to like expect you to remember. So foreign languages. If you don't live in a country that doesn't speak a bunch of other languages, there's no way I'm going to remember French from 4 years in high school, right? I've never thought about it in terms of civics class. By the time that Americans, I think majority, learn civics, we're only like 14 or 15? We usually wait 3 years before we can use it. That's some bullshit. when you learn driver's ed, for instance, it's actually right when you're turning 16 and you can get your permit. Why do they do that? Education, man.
I forgot about that. That's a weird thing. They don't, at least where I went to high school, there was no like driver's ed class. I always thought that was just like a TV meme, and I didn't realize it was like an actual American thing that you guys did till I had met and talked to some Americans after high school.
Yeah. I think it's lumped in with your physical education and thus also your sex education. Different years for 50-50. Anyways, that was actually something really interesting. And I never realized, and that's why I don't remember a lot of the terms that you were talking about earlier, and I had to re-educate myself. Anywho, I'm just going to talk about this because, again, Lillekanin's not going for anything too cheesy. In fact, he did throw down the armory, but he's trying to go for a drop first, which isn't that big of a deal for Reynor to deal with. And Reynor's getting roaches, so even if it was a Hellbat push, I don't think Reynor would be in that much trouble.
By the way, people are asking about what we're referring to regarding the Korea stuff. It's going to be the Olima League. Some of you may not watch it because it's at 3 a.m. on weekdays, but it's going to be a pretty long day of event. I think we're going to be casting a lot of matches that day. We'll be casting here on BaseTradeTV, not on someone else's channel. That's the best part of it. So you guys will be able to tune into BaseTradeTV and watch that happen.
I don't know how many breaks we're supposed to have, but it is a round of 4 brackets, so I don't know how long it's going to be.
Well, it's every... I guess, yeah, I was just expecting the Korean studio to take those crazy breaks. Got a donation coming in.
Yeah, we did.
Thank you to Din Mama. $5 is super appreciated. That's actually the most... Actually, yesterday we had that one really crazy guy donate at the end of the stream. So thank you, Din Mama, for the $5.
Woohoo! Well, here comes the Hellbat push. But as I was saying, since Reynor already has a couple of roaches and also has the capacity to make more roaches in the Roachborn, I really don't think it's going to be a lot of damage. I mean, his roaches were pretty clumped up, and that's always not what you want to do, but this isn't... It got the queen. There you go.
It does, and it picks up and goes to the main, so Roach is going to take some time to run around and get back to it. Thank you to Ubi down for the 8-month resub. Big love on that one, dude. This attack, though, is really falling flat, in my opinion. Not only has it not succeeded in killing a lot of workers, it's kept his own army supply low as a consequence.
That's true.
Well, Liberators coming. You know what? He did take out the queens. There's no anti-air. These Liberators, there's like 1 queen remaining.
Yeah, she's gonna be in a pretty perfect position, though.
No, she's not.
Whoa, why? I mean, that was she was supposed to be.
She was supposed to be. It looked like he had edged her out of the circle, but I guess like 1 step further is what he needed to take. This shuts down a couple of bases worth of mining, and this is going to really hurt Reynor's economy for a small time. In fact, watching Reynor go from like skyrocketing ahead at almost 1,000 minerals per minute more than Lillekanin to almost 1,000 less. Like, this is so nasty.
I mean, it's good damage when they, especially when the Hellbats didn't really do anything at all, but I don't think it's enough, though. Like, Reynor's at 60 drones. Lillekanin's only just getting his 3rd CC. He gave up a lot of better unit production, shall we call it, by doing the Hellbat attack first. Hellions are pretty easy to make, you know, they're reactored out, but that did mean that he, you know, had less minerals, and his factory's only coming down now to give him that optimal factory production for 3 bases. I mean, I don't know, it's going to be a struggle.
Just killed everybody in the bank heist.
What? I didn't even participate in this bank heist.
Why did you trip people then, man? You're just like, you guys weren't cool enough to invite me to the bank heist, so I'm just going to sabotage y'all?
I didn't do anything.
It wasn't
By the way,
a promise.
it's this is a really nice attack. Lillekanin, please, Lillekanin, what are you doing, buddy?
I mean, I know
Lillekanin,
you got some muscles on you, man. It's not a question about whether you lift, it's about whether you will lift or not.
I mean, I know he was microing his liberators, but those aren't that hard to... I'm kind of judging.
So, 15 drones is not worth losing an orbital, though, at the end of the day. Losing mining, not worth an orbital at the end of the day. Like, I get that the micro was probably, in his mind, worth it, but, yo, losing that orbital is, like, game-ending damage, in my opinion.
I agree. That is super bad. I mean, he's already rebuilding 2 of them, which is kind of funny, but that's not a good sign. Reynor has already been on a good number of drones, so, again, losing that many, he pretty easy replaces them, or is just fine at 55. And still can make this really big army. It's tripling the army supply of Lillekanin right now. Oh my god, he gets his tanks and things. Dear god. That's it. Actually, I just tapped out.
Alright, Reynor is going to tie the series up 1-1. Bring us that ace match. Now it is going to be a Lillekanin's map pick. I would like to give a shout out to the other players advancing through, by the way. Guru on the other side of this, we knew was waiting to play the series winner of this. Snoot advances on to fight against Kerr or Bly. And we should have some really interesting semifinals coming up after. But we got to get game 3 done first. And before that, a commercial break because it's been about 20 minutes. So stick around, guys. We'll see you in 2 minutes with game number 3. Alright, you guys are hearing the beeps. Beep, beep, boop. Getting into New Gettysburg for game number 3.
Yep, Reynor bringing it back. Lillekanin, I think he's just going to go back to the cheese. That's what I'm expecting.
I mean, New Gettysburg's a little bit of a more difficult map to cheese on, but the pro players regularly make jokes about how this is also like, you know, can I or can't I play standard on this map? And usually it's the latter of the two. Regardless, though, game number 3, things tied up 1-1. Winner of this will advance on to the semifinals. Bottom left side of the map, we got the Green Terran, Lillekanin.
In the bottom right, as the blue Zerg, he is Reynor.
Now, part of me is really pulling for Lillekanin on this, just so we don't have all ZvZ semifinals, but it's looking like it might be Bly versus Snoot and Reynor versus Guru if things go, I think, as people would expect them to. I would love for Lillekanin to maybe upset this just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, after the first game, when Reynor apparently didn't consider the secondary and tertiary scouts, I was like, actually, I think Lillekanin might be able to win this. But now I think Reynor's going to be a little more on top of that. The first scout against his Overlord, maybe even a drone scout would have been in order, but he doesn't, and he didn't have to this game. But, you know, Ling scout, Overlord suicide later on, Ling constantly going around the map. I think he's going to do all these things a little bit more actively and not have such a win.
So I have to let my cat in real quick, so I'm just put the camera on you real fast. Enjoy the tilted camera. It'll be like for 30 seconds, guys. I gotta be right back.
Okay. So, yeah, as I was saying, he doesn't have to worry about that so far in this game. Lillekanin is going for what looks to be a 1-Rax expand. Yeah, 1-Rax expand. So, if he doesn't go for a 1-base cheese, Lillekanin usually does go into mech. He doesn't have a lot of 2-base all-ins, I want to say. It's kind of hard to have a 2-base all-in, honestly, as a Terran player. You can just basically gut 2 bases and only boost off 2 bases, but even then, I feel like a lot more often they try and get the 3rd CC if it goes well. Just the capacity of Medivacs to continue doing damage even far beyond your intentioned, like, all-in, I feel gives Terran a lot of hope. It's a pretty scrappy race, right? But for Lillekanin, I don't expect like a 2-base, 2-1-1 into 3 more barracks and then just power hard on 2 bases. That's what I'm talking about. I think that if it is just 2 bases, it's also 3 bases and 4 bases and 5 bases. So Lillekanin likes to go mech.
Okay, I'm back.
And we'll see what happens. New Gettysburg does have a couple of tricky like tank spots, but they kind of fade very quickly as the game goes on. So if you can get them early, you can actually go up against the ledge on their natural, and that's kind of annoying for the Zerg to deal with, but it's not as abusive as like Frozen Temple or Galactic Process.
Hello.
Hello.
Alright, so I see nothing too crazy happen, and a majority of the buildings are in fact at home.
Yeah, I was just saying that Lillekanin, if he's going to go for the 2nd command center, he most commonly goes for like a 3rd, 4th, and 5th. There's not many 2 bases all in he does.
You know, this map, the first time we got to see it, obviously it's changed a little bit since then, but the first time we got to see it, BCQD versus Lambo, we did have a really awesome, very long game on it. And I've kind of, to a smaller extent, like almost pined for seeing it again. Because nowadays, most of these, I feel, end around the 3rd base, 4th base, depending on like who's getting more aggressive.
Yeah.
We haven't seen like a split map in New Gettysburg for a while, but if there's a guy to do it, turtle up, go starports, get battle cruisers, tanks, whatever you name the weird stuff, it would be Lillekanin.
Of course it would. But he does occasionally just play even, not just a macro game with mech, he occasionally plays bio too. It's not that he's like bad with bio, it is just...
I think it's less desirable. It's like for me, for example, I personally enjoy mech just because it's more fun to play. For me, again, I'm not saying it's better or worse.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying that because he is getting a lot of Marines right now, but it is for a Widowmine drop. So it does not mean he's going Bile until we see that stim started. For Reynor, I do like that he's going Roach Warren every single time. After that first game, at the very least, where he doesn't... he didn't really get the opportunity to choose to go for a Roach Warren, but it is going to give you a lot of safety, because even if you don't use it immediately, just the ability to make Roaches can save your life if they do go for a Hellbat push. And of course, turning them to Ravagers can help out too if they're going to go for Liberator harassment early on. But a Widowmine drop, you can deal with that with technically pure Queens. A couple of lanes will help them.
Well, the Overlords do have speed, which is kind of nice to see for once, so being able to scout will be a breeze. Also, Reynor really wants to get the drops as an option, but we'll see if that comes into play at all. For now, on the other side of the map, looks like Widowmine works with the Marines to kill an Overlord down here. Spore Callers are going to get started up for detection, at least at the third, but Widowmines I don't think are going to be that problematic. Sees the third CC, Viking as well, and he's just got to be scratching his head like, wait a minute, there's not 3 factories down. Who am I even playing? Or who's playing on Lillekanin's account?
Well, now there's 3 factories, so I just had to wait a little while to see that. But Reynor is getting comfortably up to a lair. He has gone up to almost 60 drones, and that'll put him at the most comfortable position he can be in. And then he can actually stop at 60 drones, not even worry about a 4th base for a while, and just get Roaches if he's really worried that Lillekanin is going to attack him with a weird push. But seeing the 3rd CC guarantees that even if they do push, it's not going to be very powerful.
I'm wondering how good that Widowmine was, by the way. Going off of the Queens was certainly a lot of damage, but had it popped off on all the links, and maybe he would have had a bit more staying power. Either way, looks like the Widowmine's going to be dealt with as a Spore Crawler repositions. He could have maybe saved that, but definitely not anymore. Drone going to be heading up here to take a 4th, but will be met with the Marines. The links should clean this up, and I think Reynor should pretty easily establish this 4th base down. Question that goes to Lillekanin, what's next for him? He's going to double armories. It looks like he wants to go back towards that mech style of things, despite playing with Marines in the early game. I mean, this isn't bad, but the problem that I'd still say a lot of mech players have is, okay, well, Liberators were introduced to the game. You still lack anti-air, generally speaking, and these scans, it's so important that he saw that Spire, because if he didn't get a Thor out right away, or he didn't get a couple of Liberators, or anything, you get completely sideswiped by the mutas. That still happens. That much hasn't changed since HOTS.
Yeah.
Shot does Viking,
I do
by the
wonder
way. 3rd Overlord kill.
How much is Reynor going to dedicate to those mutas? He has about 10 saved up in his bank, and he might use all of it on 10 mutas, because 10 is a pretty nice number to harass and make Lillekanin panic a bit, but I could also see him just not even going for mutas anymore and just going for a hive. Like, this Overseer sees that there's a 4th base, he's still only on 3 factories of production, so that's not going to give you very much pushing power, reinforcing power. I think he might have seen the army a little bit too with the Overseer, and it's not that big of an army. He could really play quite greedy if he wanted to. That's generally what you can do against mech, but sometimes there are those 3 base pushes, and it's not an automatic, but with the good scouting he's getting, I would say that he could be greedier. And he does just go for a limited amount of mutas. They're going to give him further scouting, a little bit of map control, maybe force out units looking they want to build, and he is going to go for that hive. So I gotta imagine it's going to be for Broodlords. So now it's up to Lillekanin to scout that.
Surrounded by the legs is going to be a bit painful for one Marine to deal with. Oh, rip the medevac anyways. But that was a pretty big reveal, actually, to show that many Mutalisks out. I mean, I think Lillekanin was kind of guessing, but to see a lot of them already, Thor's coming out right off the bat. Now, Thor's, of course, they've got that cool transformation mode, but it's not going to prove to be any really effective at all versus mutas. I also want to point out, Lillekanin's gone really heavy on the turrets. Like, almost too heavy on the turrets. But this should secure that the mutas don't kill him. The question is now, does he have the means and the capability to deal with anything on the ground? You know, these lings, for example.
Right. That's 10 turrets for 12 mutas. I'd say that's dramatic.
So, my argument against this, though, is that if you are playing mech, we've talked a lot about mineral dumping in the past, and while it's not as common anymore, it is a better way to spend your minerals than building an extra 15 Hellions. At least for the time being.
Maybe. I mean, he was banking minerals, so it is just kind of like, oh god. It's just kind of like, okay, why not? He's gonna build more command centers after that, too. I think, of course, talking about minerals, talking about scans, maybe he should just be scanning to see if Reynor's gonna go to Hive, because I don't think he's quite responding to Brood Lords. He's getting a lot of Liberators, which technically have anti-air, but it's not quite what you want against Brood Lords. If he's thinking about just doing Thor Liberator as a response, I guess it can work. But I really think that Vikings still have a place. I know that Vikings seem really useless and terrible, and sometimes they really are, but their micro potential and their range is still really good. We'll see. It might even be about the Broodlords, though, of course. Reynor is looking to push a little bit with his ground army.
Well, I like the Liberation to police down the Mutalisks. I do want to point out the Broodlord composition is going to be a little bit awkward to deal with. Thors, again, in transformation mode, actually aren't too bad. And there's not that many Corruptors guarding them, so the Liberators in non-transformation mode may even be able to deal with the Broodlords. There's very limited anti-air here.
Yeah. I am surprised. Well, I guess I can only be so surprised. Reynor does have this, like, really big army on the ground, and there's a lot of, frankly, useless roaches. Get rid of half of those, maybe leave a couple as Ravagers, and that's okay, but it is taking up a lot of supply, and his drones also, at almost 80, taking up a lot of supply, what could have been more Corruptors to really make this an all-out air war. Even a couple Widow Mines are in here.
Well, I'm starting to lose frames. I guess we haven't had this much action in a while. Getting new Gettysburg. The Liberators are busy focusing on the Corruptors. I actually think it's a bit of a mistake. They can take the Broodlords a lot faster. Thor's also getting annihilated on the ground. The Hellbats and the Planetary should keep the Broodlings off them, however. So if he deals with the Roaches, the Thors could hypothetically deal with the Broodlords. But his anti-air count is waning, we'll say.
That was... For how little anti-air Reynor had, he had the Mutas, which got demolished by the Liberators really quickly. I'm really surprised that Reynor's able to do this much damage.
I was surprised that he wasted so much time on 3 Corruptors when he really could have just killed the Broodlord straight up. This Planetary probably didn't need to go down. This engagement through like a recovery replay could have gone, I think, a completely different direction.
Absolutely. And if Reynor had waited 10 more seconds, he also would have had 2-2.
Also, fighting out here is not what you want to do. He's shooting an Overlord instead of Corruptors, not controlling this well. He's busy looking elsewhere with tank drops, apparently. That's a thing. Who knew?
Cool.
Double tank drops.
They DPS down buildings pretty quickly. It's a little intimidating, but Ling's responding, and of course, now that Reynor has lost a lot of supply, he didn't have the biggest bank. He's not automatically remaxing with a mass air army, but now he has a choice to, whereas before he was limited by a lot of that ground army, which they're actually very helpful. The Lings ended up lasting a lot longer than usually happens versus mech, because they usually just get obliterated by the Hellions. But again, yeah, now he can go into more Corruptors if he wants to, and more Broodlords. Well, maybe he just use the Corruptors to kill the anti-air and then pee on the building. He's only making 3 Broodlords. 4 Broodlords? 5? Nope. Alright. Well, 4 aren't going to do a lot of damage to the ground, which is why it's a little bit questionable to have a light Broodlord count. It's also questionable to have like 20 Broodlords, because you don't have enough Corruptors to carry them, then that's, you know, Vikings free kills, but let's say that 4 is probably too few.
This is where, again, the Thors, you actually start questioning what mode you want to have. Single target mode is clearly better for the Broodlords. There's not even a question about that. But, excuse me, when so many air units are clumped up with all these Corruptors and all these Broodlords, that very ineffective amount of splash suddenly starts becoming more worthwhile. I think, though, for Lillekanin, I like the emphasis on Thors. I don't like how much, though, that this is, like, I want to say detracting from the rest of his army, however. Like, his air count's not so great. The Thor count's not going to be supported by that many Hellbats. And he really does need a way to keep Broodlings off those Thors.
Yeah, I'd say that Tankster thing he's not one to make right now, but as he builds 4 Thors at a time, he cannot make Liberators or Vikings, so we're not sure which one he would want to go for, but he just can't afford them, so... Ooh, I mean, he is getting, like, really nice upgrades, 3-3 against 1, because it is becoming more and more about that air war.
The scan was actually great, too, to see this coming from the right side, but he didn't reposition himself for it. So now he's just fighting against the Broodlings for the time being. The Thors could inch forward and maybe pick up the Broodlords. Let's not forget, single target mode also gives you a bit of extra range, but backing away from this, just taking down the gases, attacking on the left side, Lillekanin out of position, not ready to fight, can't take on the Roaches. He can deal with the Lings with the Blue Flame Hellbats, but he can't deal with the Roaches. And oh my god, that funnel was so disgusting!
Couple tanks siege up to and help take care of the Roaches, and that's a pretty nice hold on his base, and he will now be able to expand to his 5th but his 4th is again under attack by the Broodlords, both being very careful here. As Reynor actually is just going to go for more Broodlords. He is going to the mass air army.
+3 weapon upgrades on these Thors. It's going to be like 65 a shot or something insane like that. Like, Broodlords are going to die in like 4 shots from these Thors. That's what makes it such a big deal. But they do have a really long cooldown, so it's a bit difficult to just kind of aim move. You have to start single target and focus firing.
There's so many complications that can happen, which is why sometimes Thor Viking can look amazing, Thor Hellbat Viking can look amazing, and sometimes it's like, why did you ever think that ground was going to defeat air?
I feel very strongly that Lillekanin's upgrade should carry him far in this. And another part of that, too, is the armor on these Thors means the Broodlings are going to be tickling them. These Thors are going to have like 4 armor, Broodlings are going to be hitting for like 5 or less. I mean, it's just, he's got 1 weapon upgrade? Yeah, 1 weapon upgrade.
Yeah. But there's so much micro that can be involved. Like, if there's 20 Broodlords and they get 20 Broodlings, okay, they don't do a lot of damage to the Thors, but they keep them derping, so they're not actually targeting the Broodlords. Now we have Vipers and their abilities to add into the mix, too. So that could be a Blinding Cloud, actually, or it could just be Abducts to take out 1 Thor at a time. They're pretty big targets.
Lillekanin with some awkward army splitting. There's no reason for the Vikings to be up here at all, or those Thors even. Everything should be here defending. Everything's clumped up, too. That's where you really want these Thors to splash just a bit, even if it's 1 Thor in splash mode. But just trying to get these shots, he's wasting a lot of shots on the Broodlings on the ground and not attacking anything in the air, really. I mean, the armor upgrades are also benefiting the Hellbats and the tanks. Let's not forget, everything here has like 4+ armor, 3 armor on the Hellbats. These Broodlings are not hitting for much. They've got 5 melee damage.
They aren't. Reynor definitely should have prioritized upgrades all over the place, actually, both on his ground, in this case melee, as well as his air, with probably a second Spire. I guess he's abandoning it. He couldn't really... It's legitimate, though. He couldn't really get up against that ledge.
So
he's bleeding out units.
I get that, but then part of me is also like, where's the building armor at this point, too? If you know Broodlords are going to be such a big problem, having building armor and making those Broodlings do no damage, you can just sit on there forever with only a couple SCVs repairing. So let's go for the top left, though. This is the base he did try and expand to. He's going to go for the island as well, but Reynor with a very nice creep block.
Just go to the next one. I didn't think about creeping up his own base.
No, that tank actually just blows up the spine collars as they build. That does more damage than you would imagine. 34 shot. Corruptors can't shoot down. Not a lot they can do. They can kill buildings, but they can't caustic spray on units.
Makes sense. Totally makes sense.
Should totally be able to caustic spray on units. Just throwing up Mama Bird style.
Well, Lillekanin gave up that base. That might have been the better choice, as opposed to bleeding out Thor after Thor. He's in the middle of the map now. He is still kind of desperate for money and gas, and while he can take more orbitals around the base, Reynor does have speedlings, so if it's going to be orbitals around the map, it might be difficult for him to actually secure his bases.
I don't imagine you're thinking about orbitals this late in the game anyways. Not Lillekanin, at least. For some
well, I mean, his bases that he has to lift.
Oh, I see what you mean. When you're transferring them over from like the main... Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I misunderstood. Yeah, I was gonna say at this point, like planetaries are almost like a must-have as far as regular expansions, because you're gonna be so worried about Broodlords for the rest of the game, much less Speedlings, as you mentioned. That Abduct took a tank down 3 levels. It was kind of cool to see. A wild ride of an adventure.
I think Lillekanin has a chance to take a good fight, but it is still, again, like a lot to do with that micro. You know, we witnessed like the Viper abduct a Thor, so that it could have definitely started targeting the Broodlords, but of course it paid attention to the Broodlings that were like behind it. They're going to derp out. And Blinding Clouds, yeah, I think are going to be very effective. They have nowhere to run out of those. No,
and unfortunately, too, the Hellbats were really far away from this, so the Broodlings are doing a lot more work than they should have. I never thought the Blinding Clouds would be so good, but Lillekanin, of course, to shoot up, just not down when it comes to these Blinding Clouds. Broodlord's caught in a little bit of an odd position, start getting popped off as the Thors finally fire, but he's still wasting shots, and he's not focusing. He's losing his army. I don't understand what just happened here, but it's not going well, because at the end of the day, Lillekanin's new Thors look like they are getting here and focus firing down the Broodlords.
Yeah, finally they're getting the focus fire that they need, but they're still derping out. The Blinding Cloud, oh god.
The Blinding Clouds were actually so fantastic there. I really like that, but it's only towards the end Lillekanin realized he needed to focus fire down the Broodlords.
Right.
His A move scenario, it kept some of the Thors derping. It made sure that none of these Broodlords died in a timely manner. Now new Broodlords are being made. Thors are not going to be the answer going forward into this. The Broodlings, though, are being shaved off pretty quickly by this many Hellbats, and so 1 or 2 Thors could really actually break the rest of the army. It looks so silly, it looks so dumb. The army supplies say that this should be Reynor's fight every single time, but they're repairing SCVs, the Hellbats keeping the Broodlings at bay. Lillekanin manages to hold the line for now.
Yeah. But no real way to max out again. He did not take his extra
He's running
gases.
out of cash too.
And he's like, yeah, he's also running out of minerals, and he's having to produce Thors, which are super damn expensive. This is Marines, where 10 Marines can be produced, and you go for a killer drop. He's tried dropping with his mech units, and it only did minimal amounts of damage.
By the way, shouts to Nathanius for his amazing analogies over the last 5 minutes, because he's been completely accurate on all of them, but they're getting quite detailed.
He's one part amazing mech guru, one part analogy master.
Yeah, 100% Nathanius.
No,
I got this, like, 100%
Okay.
mech master, 100% caster, 200% man. Nathanius.
Okay. He's also Russian, apparently.
Yeah, I don't know why I did Russian there. That was weird.
Because Russian is the manliest he can ever be.
Dobrate.
So, Reynor just added on a lot more Broodlords. You know, we just saw that a couple of Thors did a lot of work against Broodlords, and that looks really cool. The thing is, if you have 20 Broodlords, their Broodlings numbers are going to derp out the Thors again, but also they're going to actually DPS down 6 Thors pretty quickly.
There is a dynamic here that's working in a small way for Lillekanin, but I do want to point out that at this stage of the game, had Lillekanin instead invested in a lot of, we'll say, Liberators even, despite the fear of Parasitic Bomb and despite the damage of the Corruptors, that splash damage would have chewed through that armor, and I think it would have annihilated this army.
Yeah. There's like a good composition that you can get, but it, again, goes a lot to micro, and I feel it sometimes happens. I don't want to say that anyone actually has an advantage with that micro fight.
I'm watching the stream delay for that fight that happened. We were so confused about what was going on. And like, it wasn't until those 4 Thors at the end. Like, he had lost like 16, right? 4 Thors at the end started killing up all the Broodlords.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
it's so infuriating.
But,
Look at the units lost too, by the way. This game, 22 Thors, 26 Broodlords. No big deal.
So, like, you brought up the Liberators, and that's a really good point, because look at the Broodlord stacking right there. If you come over with 5 Liberators as they're moving,
it's a
you
joke,
actually kill them, and you're like, haha, I sniped all your Broodlords. It shouldn't be able to happen, but it does. Vikings also could have been helpful in just sniping at least the Vipers so they don't come back. Again, the mobility of Vikings can actually help out a lot, especially if they're over a ledge, and your Thors can't get to them.
He's got blue okay, his upgrades aren't going to be that big deal going forward, but losing the armory means he can't build more Thors. Oh, it's the other armor. That's right. I forget about too.
Yeah.
Still no building armor, so the full surround on the planters, it's going to go down. This gets kind of messy. No focus fire going down again. Thor's getting abducted underneath the Broodlords. No Hellbats because they're all brought back to the main, so nothing to wash off the Broodlings. And there's so many Broodlings. It's like watching this week's mutation.
It really is a lot to do with numbers. Lillekanin is already down 30 army supply, by the way, at that point, but it is still all about the numbers. Just too many damn Broodlords.
So
the Corruptors are dying, and Reynor's gonna realize, oh, just tap out.
GG. Lillekanin falls on New Gettysburg.
Ah, well. Zerg, and more Zerg.
Games like that, though, man, they make me really want to just go play the game again. Like, I just...
Top 4 Zerg. Fucking nailed it.
Yeah, so it's going to be ZvZ all the way through at this point, folks, but it's going to be pretty good quality ZvZs. We'll do Bly and Snoot first because they've been waiting longer. We'll do Guru and Reynor afterwards, so best of 3 into best of 3 into best of 5 grand finals. Do stick with us. We'll be back after this commercial break with more of the Corsair Cup when we return.